Hi, this is Dr. Harriet Fraad with another episode of Capitalism Hits Home, a show dedicated to exploring the effects of capitalism on gender, family, and relationships. Today, I'm going to do a podcast on Kavanaugh. Although Kavanaugh is already on the Supreme Court, there is an opportunity, since the Democrats are now a majority of Congress and have investigative possibilities. Kavanaugh can be investigated. And those women who are elected might find the ovaries to stand up and question Kavanaugh and expose him the way the 9 hand-picked witnesses picked by McGahn, Trump's lawyer, didn't, since they eliminated 40 witnesses and only investigated 9. There's a joke that I'll begin with, which is a liar, a rapist, and a drunk came into the bar and sat down. The bartender leaned across the bar and said, "What can I get for you tonight, Mr. Kavanaugh?" All that was revealed was ignored. Kavanaugh became what if it were a woman, crying, hysterical, blaming, and accusing. She would have been dismissed as just another hysterical woman. As he protested, he, as an elite man, a graduate from Yale, dominant in his position as both a sportsman and as a Yale graduate, how dare these lowly Congress people, particularly Congress women, interrogate him? When Amy Klobuchar asked him if he had ever blacked out drunk, he asked her the same question, as if to say, "Who are you to question me? A woman? An underling?" Kavanaugh was the child of a wealthy lobbyist and a judge. He was bred to be a dominant competitor in a dominating competitor capitalism. His relief from that pressure to dominate was in drunkenness and also in raping subordinates who are women. And those subordinates could be of his own social class. He and his compatriots drugged women, knocked them out with wood alcohol, spiked their drinks, and felt dominant by raping their prone, inert bodies without the women's knowledge. This is the epitome of dominator competitor culture, and it's a most noxious aspect of the male gender, which both men and women are struggling against. Let's look at the background here. There has been a huge transformation in America, and that transformation is what informed the big turnout and running for Congress and victories of women and the Million-Woman March for women and the new activation of youth and women to change America. Before the 70s, white men got a family wage, which afforded them a full-time servant in the home, someone to take care of their emotional needs, their sexual needs, their children, and if he felt like it, their parents, to clean and create order and cleanliness and to socially connect him with relatives and friends. That became more difficult when capitalists decided that they could make even more money by making the whole world their proletariat. They could export jobs to Bangladesh, where workers can earn less than $1 an hour, or to India, or to the higher-paid workers in China at $3.12 an hour, who have few, if any, ecological restrictions and safety measures, which is why over 1,000 people died in Bangladesh when a clothing factory collapsed. And so they deserted the white males, who are now the angry supporters of Trump. and they demoted them from primacy in their households because their women were forced into the labor force in order to make ends meet. And then when they came home tired after bonding with other women at the job, because we have to remember that still 43% of women still work in pink-collar jobs that are lower paid. But when they came home, they had bonded with other women. They had talked to other women. They made their own wages. They felt less dependent and less trapped. And they no longer tolerated being bossed around and demeaned. And so women filed for divorce. The majority of divorces are filed by women. And that doesn't count the separations, which are about, I would think, 20%, but are not even counted, of people who just end their marriages, but they don't have the money for lawyers or money to fight over. They make an arrangement and split. And so now the majority of women are single. And they no longer want to be subservient. Women have gone from being feudal serfs, doing the lord of the manor's bidding in exchange for support, to independence. Women make their own money. They make their own connections. They have a life outside of a household dominated by a male. This is something that enrages Trump's supporters, who feel like making America great again is making it majority white, with men controlling the actions of women. The new development of incels, involuntarily celibate men who are enraged at women who they feel ought to sexually serve them on demand and not have any role in whether they are available sexually or not, as married women used to not have any role previously. It wasn't until 1999 that all the states outlawed marital rape. Women's rights are newly won in the United States as the women's movement pressed in the late 60s and 70s. Right-wing disinformation blames men's new lowered financial status not on their flat wages provided by capitalists, but on uppity women and minorities who have taken their place. What they have confused is in the 70s, America did include a lot more minorities than they had previously, and women were forced into the labor force and liked it. Mainly, but in any case, were forced by economic circumstances. And therefore, men were demoted from their lowly status of controlling women and children. Kavanaugh, with his proud domination of women, with his arrogant elitism, wants to perpetuate that. And he has perpetuated it in his legal decisions, which are completely against unions. In the case of the agribusiness workers, he decided that because they were immigrants, they couldn't be covered by unions. And so they lost their chance at the meat processing factories to organize, where they had been terribly exploited. He personally, in his legal career, thwarted an NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, order that would have required the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino to bargain with the UAW, the United Auto Workers Union. Here he asserted his firm belief that, and his birth as a white, elite, male, rich capital owners trumped, shall we say, the rights of people of color, because they had protested against being fired when they tried to organize a union. He particularly discriminated against black people, because unions make the big difference, particularly for black women who earn an average of $242 a week more when they have a union than when they don't. They also have health care. Women have health care when they're in unions. Not always the greatest health care, but they have a much better chance of getting health care. The Economic Policy Institute last year reported that female union workers earn 94 cents on the male dollar, where their non-union peers earn only 74 cents on the dollar. So that his jeopardizing unions and his consistent votes against unions are also votes against women. Kavanaugh will have a huge impact on all women, particularly black women and university and union women. What is Kavanaugh? What does he represent? He represents male privilege of an elite, white, dominant male in a dominator, competitor United States. And he will have jurisdiction over women's bodies and over our capacity to earn a living, thanks to the gerrymandered audition that he had, that only 9 out of the 40 witnesses were interviewed, and he was passed through by white males. There is a revolution happening. The revolution is in the household and personal relationships, where women who work outside of the home no longer want to be relegated to being the servants of men in the home. There was a security for that servant position, and those are Trump's white female supporters, who are many fewer than the opponents among women, but there is a group of women who want to hold on to the privilege and also the problem of serving men, knowing their place, even if it's a lowly place. In Nazi Germany, they solved the problem the way Kavanaugh would like to solve it now. They forced women out of the home to work up to 60 hours a week in munitions factories, while they defined women's work as kitchen, church, and children, Kirche, Küche, and Kinder. That allowed them to say the work they required of women in the factories wasn't their true vocation, so they could be paid a whole lot less. And like Trump's and Kavanaugh's agenda, the women of Nazi Germany couldn't have abortions and couldn't have birth control either. It was up to the men to decide to do that or not, because you have a choice now that the overwhelming majority of women are in the workforce. You will either have the conditions for a liberated workforce where women have support in childbirth and childcare and paternity leaves and maternity leaves and full health care and after-school care, or you will have women as fascist feudal workers consigned to the domestic responsibilities without any kind of respite, and you have the neglected children and the victimized children of Nazi Germany who were often institutionalized, and any of them who had a problem were killed. We're in a dangerous time, and Kavanaugh represents that time. He represents those forces that want to force women back into servitude and want to change the relationships of men and women from those of people communally trying to build homes and relationships and families into a servant-master relationship. That's what Kavanaugh represents. And my hope is that the women in Congress will find the ovaries to stand up and demand an investigation and get him out of the Supreme Court. Thank you for listening. This episode has been brought to you by Democracy at Work. Please support our work. Visit our website at democracyatwork.info.